I'm Anita, 31. At my mom's family party, my nephew dumped juice on me and shouted, "Grandma says you don't belong." Everyone laughed. I wiped my dress, smiled, and stayed quiet. What came next, they never saw coming. They were already laughing when I walked in. Balloons sagged over the dining table, paper plates, stacked chatter bouncing off the walls. Nobody noticed me, not even my mother, though I held a small box wrapped in silver paper. Before I tell you what happened that night, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. And if you've ever been pushed aside at a family event, hit subscribe. This story will feel familiar. I shifted the box from one hand to the other, ribbon perfect, still hoping she might open it. The room smelled of sweet punch and barbecue, kids running between chairs, adults clinking glasses. Tyler's gifts were already piled high on the coffee table, ribbons, torn wrappers scattered like confetti. I cleared my throat at the doorway. Someone waved vaguely to a seat near the kitchen. My gift stayed in my lap, unopened. People passed food without looking at me, their voices rising as Tyler bragged about Grandma promising him a car at 16. My brother Mike laughed, the loudest, head-thrown-back arm slung over his chair. Grandma nodded, eyes shining as if she'd raised a prodigy. A cousin leaned over and whispered, "Tyler's a genius, Anita. You must be so proud to have him in the family." Laughter rolled again. I smiled, but my grip on the gift box tightened, nails pressing into the ribbon. The living room and backyard blurred together, music playing from a speaker, paper cups on every surface. I sat between two strangers, my fork missing. Someone had taken it without asking. Tyler's phone buzzed. He whispered to a friend, eyes flicking at me. Grandma leaned in to Mike, laughing about how outspoken Tyler is for his age. The words floated across the room like a little knife. I looked down at my lap, smoothing the hem of my dress, willing myself to disappear. When dessert came out, no one mentioned my fundraiser 2 weeks earlier. No one asked about my shop. I was just there, a placeholder at their party, a name they could point at and remind themselves they were better than. My necklace box sat on the side table, still unopened, its bow starting to fray from my fingers. Across the room, Tyler watched me with a grin, thumb sliding over his phone screen. The smell of barbecue grew heavy. Kids squealed, adults clinked glasses. I lifted my water cup hands, steady, heart slow. I could feel a change building, not anger, not even sadness, but something else. I stayed quiet. I always stayed quiet. This time, though, there was a new weight to my silence, like a door about to swing open. Tyler's laughter carried over the music like a spotlight no one asked for. He strutted between tables, showing off his new watch, the one Grandma had bought, the one he said he deserved. Mike clapped him on the back, proud as if he'd earned it himself. I sat there, hands folded, feeling the sticky edge of the tablecloth against my skin. My gift box slid further down the side table, almost hidden behind empty cups. Someone brushed past and knocked my shoulder without looking. Another took the bread roll off my plate, mumbling thanks that never reached their eyes. I pressed my lips together, adjusting my seat so I wouldn't bump anyone. In the corner of my eye, Grandma bent over Tyler, fixing his collar like a prince before a parade. He smirked at me and whispered something to his friend. They both looked down at his phone and laughed. I lifted my water and drank slowly. The ice had melted, leaving only the faint taste of lemon. My fingers smoothed the condensation on the cup, as if drawing a circle. People were too busy talking about Tyler's gifted program and his bright future to notice I hadn't said a word. The necklace for Mom still glimmered under the dim light, unopened, a small, bright secret no one cared about. For years, I had played my part at these gatherings, show up, smile, hand over a thoughtful present, leave early. That night felt heavier, like the air had thickened. It wasn't a sudden thing, more like a slow tide rising. I watched them all from my chair, the gestures, the glances, the casual taking of space. Even the sound of a spoon dropping onto a plate felt sharper than usual. Tyler's shoes squeaked on the tile as he moved closer, but I didn't flinch. My phone buzzed once in my lap. Uncle Ray's name flashed briefly. I clicked the screen dark again, tucking it under my napkin. My smile stayed soft, but inside a line had been drawn. They thought I wasn't paying attention. They thought my silence meant surrender. They didn't see the shift behind my eyes, the quiet reckoning gathering like a storm far out at sea. The smell of sweet punch and barbecue thickened in the living room as the music played on repeat. Kids ran between the folding chairs, paper hats slipping off their heads, adults clinking glasses without looking. Anita, sat between two strangers at the far end of the table, the edge of my chair digging into my knees. My fork had vanished, someone had taken it when hers fell and never gave it back. I placed my hands in my lap, smoothing the napkin that had already started to tear. Across the room, Tyler stood near the cake, his phone in one hand, his voice louder than the music. Grandma bent over to fix his collar, whispering something that made him grin wider. Mike leaned back in his chair, laughing at whatever Tyler said, his arms stretched like he owned the whole space. I glanced at the untouched necklace box on the side table, ribbon crushed now from my fingers. It looked small and lost among the cups and crumbs. The chatter rose and fell like waves, each word about Tyler, his teacher calling him gifted grandma, promising him a car at 16, Mike boasting about his bright future. No one asked about my shop, my fundraiser, or the new line of products I'd launched. I lifted my water, drank slowly, eyes on the condensation dripping down the glass. In my pocket, my phone buzzed once. Uncle Ray's name glowed on the screen. I clicked it, dark again, the napkin hiding the light. Tyler's shoes squeaked as he crossed the tile toward me, a full cup of juice balanced in his hand. He stopped at my chair and stared straight at me, his voice sharp enough to cut through the chatter. "Grandma says you don't belong here." The cold liquid splashed down my dress, soaking the fabric, sticky sweetness spreading across my thighs. For a second, the room went still, then laughter burst out louder than before. Mike clapped his hands like it was a show. Grandma turned to her friend and said, "He just speaks his mind." Someone at the table chuckled, "He's so funny." The napkin tore in my hand as I dabbed at the stain, but my smile stayed fixed. Inside, something steadier than anger started to form. My silence felt heavier now, like a stone settling at the bottom of a river. I could feel the sticky fabric clinging to my skin as Tyler sauntered back to his seat, phone raised like he was filming a victory lap. The laughter swelled again, glasses clinking, chairs scraping. Someone whispered. She took it well, as if my silence were a punchline. I dabbed at my dress with a paper napkin already falling apart, sugar and dye staining my fingers. Mike leaned over the table, smirking. "Come on, Anita, it's just a kid being a kid." Grandma nodded, telling her friend how honest Tyler was, their voices blurred into a low hum. I straightened my back, pressing my palms flat on my knees until the tremor stopped. Across the table, the necklace box glimmered under a sagging balloon, still unopened, its ribbon limp like a forgotten promise. The room smelled of frosting and barbecue smoke. Kids darted past, nearly knocking my chair, one muttering sorry without looking. A cousin snapped a picture of Tyler, his smile wide, the empty juice cup in his hand like a trophy. My phone buzzed again under the napkin, a single vibration from Uncle Ray. I didn't pick up. Not yet. I lifted my water glass, held it steady. My reflection stared back from the surface, eyes calm, jaw set. They thought my silence meant surrender. They thought I wasn't paying attention. They didn't see my thumb swipe the phone screen dark again, or the way my breathing slowed, matching the ticking clock on the wall. Tyler's friend whispered something and glanced at me, stifling a laugh. Grandma called out for another slice of cake, ignoring the wet stains spreading across my lap. I folded the napkin, placed it on the table, and finally looked up. My smile stayed soft, but something behind it had shifted. A line had been drawn, invisible, but unmovable. I wasn't angry. I was clear. And clarity, I knew, could move mountains without making a sound. That night, my apartment felt like another world compared to the noise of the party. The air was still, the only sound, the low hum of my fridge. I sat at my small desk above the shop, the glow of my laptop lighting my hands. Outside, rain tapped the sill in a steady rhythm. Party photos began to appear online. Tyler's grin frozen mid-laugh, the empty cup in his hand. I opened the folder marked Loans and scrolled to the document Mike had begged me to sign a year ago. My name sat neatly under his, a cosigner he had always assumed would stay. Uncle Ray's earlier text pulsed in my mind. "Call me when you're ready." My cursor hovered over the option to withdraw. I didn't shake. I clicked once. The screen refreshed. Removal request submitted. My chest rose and fell slowly. Then I opened another window lease agreement for Mike's second location, also under my name. I downloaded it and attached it to an email for Uncle Ray with just one line, execute. My fingers moved calmly like packing a bag for a long trip. I poured myself a cup of coffee while the printer hummed. Outside, a tow truck chain clanked somewhere in the night. On my phone, missed calls stacked up, Mike, grandma, unknown. I didn't answer. I set the phone face down the screen, going dark. By morning, the ripples began. At 7:45 a.m., a tow truck pulled the car from in front of Mike's house. His calls turned from pleading to insults. Tyler posted a TikTok of himself fake crying with a caption, "Family over money." I scrolled past it without sound. My thumb hovered over reply but never moved. At 8:00 a.m., sharp, a hard knock rattled my door. Through the peephole, Mike, papers in hand, face pale, tie crooked. His lips moved, but I couldn't hear him. The hallway behind him was empty except for a faint echo of his shoes on the tile. I kept my hand on the knob but didn't open the door. Through the peephole, Mike's eyes were wild, his mouth moving fast, papers shaking. He looked smaller than I remembered, like a man caught without a script. I leaned against the frame, steady breaths, matching the slow tick of the clock above my stove. The coffee on my desk was still warm. He banged once, twice. "You can't do this, Anita. We've got payroll insurance, Tyler's fees." The words blurred behind the door. I didn't answer. Inside the apartment, my laptop still glowed, confirmation emails lined up like quiet witnesses. Uncle Ray's reply sat at the top, "All set, bank notified, lease terminated." Another knock. "You're doing this over a joke," he said louder. Not the soda, not the years of being erased, just a joke. The hallway echoed his voice, but nothing else. I straightened, placed my palm flat against the cool wood and stepped back. His shadow shifted under the door. My phone buzzed on the desk, texts from his wife, from Grandma, trying different angles, guilt, confusion, mockery. Tyler sent a short video of someone fake crying. No words, just that. I let it play once without sound, then set the phone face down again. The rain outside had stopped, leaving a hush that felt heavier than noise. In the distance, I heard a truck reversing, the beep-beep cutting through the morning. Another account closed, another signature withdrawn. It wasn't revenge. It was a line drawn in permanent ink. I walked to the window and pulled the curtain aside. Down on the street, Mike paced with his phone, glancing up at my window like he could will me to appear. I let the curtain fall back into place. My hands were steady. My silence had weight now, not emptiness. It was the sound of a door about to close. Mike's knock softened the next morning, more a tap than a demand. I opened the door just enough to see his face. His tie hung, crooked eyes, red-rimmed, papers trembling in his hands. He didn't say hello. He pushed the stack toward me like a peace offering. "They froze the loan," he muttered. "The shop won't make rent. We've got Mom's insurance coming up, Tyler's fees." His voice cracked on the last word. I leaned against the doorframe, mug of coffee in my hand. Steam curled between us. I didn't invite him in. He kept talking words, spilling rehearsed excuses, half-formed threats. "You're tearing the family apart. Dad wouldn't want this." He tried. The hallway was quiet except for a spoon clinking somewhere inside my apartment. Behind him, the elevator opened, and Uncle Ray stepped out, a folder tucked under his arm. He didn't glance at me, just walked straight to Mike and handed him a sealed envelope. Mike froze, mid-sentence, eyes flicking from the papers to Ray's calm face. The envelope bore the attorney's letterhead in crisp black ink. No drama, just facts. Mike's lips moved, but no sound came out. Tyler stood a few feet behind him, phone down, no smirk now. Grandma wasn't there to fill the silence with excuses. The three of them looked suddenly small in the fluorescent light of the hallway. I stayed where I was, leaning on the frame, the mug warm in my hands. Anita, Mike finally whispered, "We're family." I gave a single nod, nothing more. Then I stepped back and closed the door softly. The latch clicked, sealing the space between us. On the other side of the wood, footsteps shuffled, papers rustled, then nothing. Inside, my coffee tasted stronger than ever. Weeks passed. My shop filled with light and customers' shelves stocked with a new line of locally sourced products. Sales doubled in a month and the staff grew to handle the orders. The buzz inside was warm but calm, a steady hum instead of the frantic noise of family parties. When someone tagged the store on social media, I forwarded it to a cousin who still called on birthdays. I never gloated, just shared facts. They told the others, and I knew it burned quietly. I no longer checked over my shoulder. The cameras were still up, the locks still reinforced, but the edge was gone. Peace wasn't loud, it was waking up without the buzzing in my head. Mike didn't call again. His wife unfollowed me on every platform. Tyler vanished from the internet or made his accounts private. Word spread quietly among suppliers and landlords. No one wanted to back Mike's next venture. Even their church, once blindly loyal, had stepped back after the live stream. One Sunday after a private event at the shop, a showcase of women-owned businesses, I stayed behind to clean. Laughter from the day still hung in the air as we stacked chairs. One of the new girls paused by the window and said a lady had been standing outside dressed like she came from church. I checked the camera feed. It was my mother. She stood there for 5 minutes, not knocking, just staring in through the glass as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Maybe she expected the place to be closed, abandoned, or me struggling alone. Instead, she saw light movement, people wiping tables and laughing. I didn't go out. I didn't call her. I turned back to the counter, wiping it like any other night. In that moment, it really was nothing. The forced smiles, the small talk, the silences loaded with judgment, they no longer had a hold on me. My hands kept moving steady as the shop lights reflected off the clean glass. Somewhere outside, footsteps faded. Inside, I breathed easy. The door closed behind Anita like a soft echo, and the shop's warm light spilled onto the sidewalk where shadows faded. She didn't need applause or revenge. The quiet hum of her own work was enough. Sometimes strength isn't loud, it's a steady hand wiping the counter while the world finally sees who you really are.